Alright guys, let's get started. So how one plugin can make the life of a front-end developer easy, I am going to answer that question in this tutorial. So that one plugin is going to be Emmet, of course. Now you can use it with pretty much any editor you want. If you have Visual Studio Code, then you do not even have to worry about the installation, as it comes by default with Visual Studio Code. Now, if you have any other text editors like Atom or Coda or Sublime Text or Dreamviewer or any other like Notepad++, you will of course have to install it. And to install it, go to the side of Emmet, go to this download section and press any card you want to use. Which means if you want to install it inside Atom, press the card of the Atom. If you want to install it in Espresso, just press its card. So let's use it with Visual Studio Code for now, because this video is all about the usage and not installation. So let's get started. So the first thing we are going to tackle is the elements inside it. So by elements I mean of course HTML elements and how we can actually use it to generate elements. So if you want a div element, just write div, press enter, and it will automatically open up and close it for you. If you want a paragraph tag, just press P, press enter, and it will again open the tag and close it for you. If you want a header, just press H1 and press enter. It will auto open and close the header tag for you. So that is how you can actually use it with element. Let's go to the child now. So let's say we have a div element which happen to have a header as a child. So we could just write div greater than sign and then the child, which is h1 in our case. Let's press enter, and as you can see, it has automatically created the parent tag div and the child header one inside it. So let's say we have a sibling, which means that the header which is inside a div also happen to have another sibling, or in other words you could say that the div has more than one child. So if we want to do something like if we have a div which has a child of header and a paragraph, then we can do it something like this. Write the name of the parent which has a child of header. Now this header happen to have a sibling, and to tell this to Emmet, we are going to use the plus sign, and then after the plus sign we are going to mention our sibling tag or element, which in our case is going to be the paragraph, and then just press enter. And as you can see, it has created a div with two child. One of them is header and the other one is paragraph. Now let's say you have a list which have a list of, let's say, your grocery list or to-do list, which has a lot of elements. Now one way to do is the boring one. You could actually create one at a time, or you can use the multiplier, and let's see how we can actually do that. Write the unordered list if you have unordered, or order list if you have order list. Then it has a child which is of course list. Now lists are more than one in numbers, and I am going to mention that after this static. Now this is the multiplier. Now after the static, if we have, let's say, 5 items inside the list, I could just say 5, press enter, and it's going to generate a unordered list which will further have 5 list items. The next thing we are going to look at is called grouping. So let's say you are creating a div which further has two child. One of them is an unordered list which also have some child, and one of them is paragraph. So let's say how we can actually do that. We are going to use the grouping over here. I'm going to create unordered list which has list as child, which are 10 in numbers. Now this unordered list has another sibling, not the list items. So if that has, so I have to just group all of that unordered list child and then mention our sibling. So just so we could actually mention paragraph as the sibling of unordered list instead of the list. Now let's press enter, and as you can see, we have unordered list as one sibling and the paragraph as another. Let's look at the climb up. We are just going to do the same thing we did in the before grouping tag. We are going to create a div which happen to have two siblings. One of them is an unordered list which further has subchild of list which are 10 in numbers and also has a paragraph. Now let's say at this point I realize that this div has another sibling, and right now I am inside the div. I will have to go one level up, which is called climb up, and then write or create the div. So how we can actually do that? We can use the power or the cap sign and then mention the sibling of the element that is one level up, which in our case is the div, and I want that sibling to be another div. And when I will press enter, you will see it has created two divs. One is this and one is this, and this div also happen to have some child. The next thing we are going to look at is IDs and classes. So let's say you want to create a div with an ID. You could could just say div and give the ID after hash to it. Let's say the ID to this I am going to give is item1. Let's just say it's that. When I'm going to press, it's, as you can see, it has created a div with ID of item. So then now we are also going to give it a class. So let's say we have a div and it has a class of, let's say, items. So for that we are going to use dot with the div and press enter. And as you can see, it has a class of items now. So what if you want to give a class and also the ID to an element to one and same at the time? You could just go div and write dot if you want the class to be first, or hash if you want the ID to be first. It doesn't make any difference. You will actually incorporate both of selectors inside your element. So it's totally up to you. I'm going to go with the class first, so dot items, and then I'm going to go with the ID, so item2, and press enter. And as you can see, we have a class and item both at the same time. So let's say now we are going to mention about the type and attribute. So you have an input element which is of type text. So just write input and colon text and press enter. As you can see, it has created an input element with a lot of other properties. So let's say you also want to give it a name of something. You go like this, input colon, so text, and inside the brackets you are going to give the attributes like name. Let's say you want its name to be username or whatever you want to. I'm going to use username and press enter. As you can see now, it also happens to have a username. So that now we are going to look at item number. So previously we have looked that we can actually create more than one item using multiplier. But if we want that those items to have IDs, the IDs should be item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, or whatever you name after it you want a number to associate it with it. So let's say I'm going to create an unordered list which has list items as its child, which are 5 in number, of course, but I do not just want that. I want it to have a class, sorry, not the class, a ID of item. So ID is never same, right? IDs are always unique. So we are going to use this $sign over here, and after it we are going to give it a multiplier. Now what this $sign is going to do, if it's the first element, it's going to concatenate 1 with the item. If it's second, then 2. If it's third, then 3, and so on. When it's 5, it's going to concatenate 5 with the item. Let's press enter to see what I actually meant. This is what I was talking about. If it's first item, it will just concatenate 1 with the item. If it's second, then second. If it's third, then third. Now you do not have to use the item keyword. You can use whatever the name of the ID you want to have. It's not hardcore. Now let's move to the text. Now let's say it's almost all of the time when you are using a paragraph or a header sign, it's supposed to contain some text. And to give the text by creating the paragraph, you are going to use the curly braces, and inside curly braces you could actually give the text. For example, in this scenario, I'm going to give Emmet as the text, and when I'm going to press enter, it's going to incorporate the Emmet inside the tags. Now let's see how we can actually link CSS or JavaScript. So to link CSS, I'm going to go inside the head tag. All I have to go and write link CSS and press enter. And as you can see, it has created the link tag for us. And for the JavaScript, let's go down here and create it over here. We could just write script and source with it to create a script tag. And inside there, you could just give the name of your JavaScript external file. So that's it for this video, guys. That was one beautiful created plugin, Emmet, for you, which could make your life way easier as a web developer.